Encuentras llamando a Vuelos y Más. Sus precios vienen directamente de las aerolíneas y son tan bajos que no los vas a encontrar publicados en ningún otro sitio. Nos especializamos en garantizarles los boletos de avión más baratos, con descuentos en habitaciones de hotel, alquiler de carros y grandes ofertas en paquetes para cualquier lugar del mundo. No importa su destino, podemos ayudarle.
Gracias, Vuelos y Más.
¿Qué espera? Llame ya.
Broadcasting from Now Media Network's headquarters in Houston, this is Purple Politics, hosted by political expert and commentator Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Join us to discuss the most important issues affecting our nation with fresh, balanced, and objective discussion on the first bilingual media network in the United States. Purple Politics starts right now.
Broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world, you are watching Now Media Television.
Broadcasting from Now Media Network's headquarters in Houston, this is Purple Politics, hosted by political expert and commentator Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Join us to discuss the most important issues affecting our nation with fresh, balanced, and objective discussion on the first bilingual media network in the United States. Purple Politics starts right now.
Hello and welcome back to another session of Purple Politics. I am your hostess, Alina Gonzalez-Dockery, where we're going to look into the topics, if you will, of what is going on in our political system, but also dive into some major deep questions, especially what is going on with our leadership. Are we now being led by people who are incapacitated or incompetent to lead? And I'm not just saying the typical jokes of politics, oh, a politician shouldn't be able to lead, but we have some serious cause for concern when we have our Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, 81 years old, who is having episodes of freezing and completely out, but also looking at the age of our leadership, where our current president is 80 years old. The front runner for the Republican Party, according to the polls, former President Donald Trump, he is 78. Our Senate Majority Leader is Chuck Schumer, is 76. I mean, this harkens to the time of when President Ronald Reagan was first elected and he was 72 years old, and it was outlandish to think a 72-year-old could lead. But in today's day, he would be seen as a very young, viral, leader. And then we're going to talk about Donald Trump and the latest attempt to get him disqualified for running for election. So let's get into it and jump right in.
Sorry, I don't have an answer for that.
So Donald Trump is now facing a concerted effort of whether or not he is eligible to run under the 14th Constitutional Amendment, Section 3. And that basically states that an individual who is part of a rebellion or an insurrection is disqualified for running for election, holding office of the presidency. This constitutional amendment came about after the end of the Civil War. It was basically to prevent anybody who was on the Confederate side to be able to stand in the White House. So this is really interesting times. And as an attorney, I can say I'm geeking out a bit because we are going to look at so many different constitutional issues, some novel arguments being made as to whether or not Donald Trump can run for election again. And it begs the question, though, are we already stating that he's a convicted felon? He has been, and he is currently under 4 different indictments. The Washington, D.C. indictment does not say anything about an insurrection, does not say that he colluded to usurp the government. Some question whether that's just down the road, and there will probably be an amendment to the indictment. But we are in a nation where you are innocent until proven guilty. Yes, because of the internet, social media, and the 24-hour news streams, we have, like, by a popular stance, we have our opinions. But the bottom line is our judicial system is still premised on you are innocent till proven guilty. So are these questions and challenges that are being made in New Hampshire, are they a little premature? It is said to be quite, to be asked, is this also just yet another political strike and politicizing a judicial system that is meant to be neutral? Then we have what is today's version of the O.J. Simpson trial. And for those of you that are too young to know, back in 94, 95, O.J. Simpson's murder trial was the first trial of its kind to be televised. I mean, every instant of that murder trial process was televised. It was breaking news to the point that during the NBA championship, we even got to see a slow roll 25-mile-per-hour police chase. I bring that because that is what the 3-ring circus is going to be with the trials against Donald Trump. And it also begs the question is, by having these televised, and yes, it is important for us, the people, to be able to witness and observe what our judicial system is, especially in light that the judicial system's opinions on the judicial system are so low, because we're wondering if it is totally corrupt, politicized in that nature. But it also gives Donald Trump the platform to do what he does best, and that is to manipulate and use the media to his benefit. He is a showman. He has branded himself incredibly well, whether you like him or you dislike him. He knows how to use the media for his benefit. This is a candidate whose current PAC has spent over $150 million on his legal bills. Not his campaigning, his legal bills. But because of all of these indictments, because of now the newest challenge to his candidacy, it is providing him free advertisement via the media. So it's going to be a very interesting time. And yes, it is sad as well that we are now questioning the blindness of our judicial system. We are questioning whether our current president is weaponizing the Department of Justice to go after his presumptively running, his opposition in running for the president. And all of this, and then we have to ask ourselves, why is it that we, the people, continue to elect older leaders? I mean, President Biden has been in office for 50 years. 50 years. We have our oldest senator, Barbara Feinstein of California, who some would say is arguably incompetent. And I would opine that, yes, it's elder abuse, that they are wheeling her into the Senate floor so that the administrative aides could tell her how to vote. She is 89, 90 years old. We are starting to see that our leadership, who are so ingrained in the swamp, if you will, that the question is what is their competency level? Do we want a president that by the time his second term comes out will be 82 years old? And we are all wondering, is he even competent or able to stay in for this term? Kamala Harris, our vice president, was in an interview stating that when she took the oath, of office as vice president, that she knew that she would have to step up into the position of president if Joe Biden was not capable of fulfilling his term. What does that say about our current leadership? That we're now having a potential vice president who has lower approval rating scores than our president and President Trump, former President Trump, that potentially or is already stating that she is ready to step up. Is Nikki Haley right that a vote for President Biden, who will be 82 years old and who has been questionable in some of his actions and speech, getting lost on stage, whether a vote for Joe Biden is really a secret vote for Kamala Harris, a vice president that ran for the Democratic primary who did not even receive 2% of the polling or of the votes. This also begs the question that are term limits necessary at this point? Are we in such a state in this country that those who already enter leadership have now become a proclaimed lifetime employee? And I apologize for all these background noises. It seems like these are hot political questions and people want to chime in on. So the question is, do we get term limits? Do we have term limits in Congress? Do we enforce some type of control, whether through state initiatives or, which would more doubtful, congressional initiative, to state we want to start having a consecutive new leadership, kind of new think process and stuff. But also when we're looking at that the current Republican senatorial hierarchy, Mitch McConnell, and then going to the majority whips and such, that it's not until the fifth highest leading Republican is 56 years old. Everybody else is in the late 60s, mid 70s, and then Mitch at 81. And it still comes to, how do we implement term limits? And that is going to be the best question, because we have our guest, Scott Tillman, today, who is the federal director of the U.S. Term Limit Movement. And he's going to explain how this benefits all of us. And we will come back to not only the interview with Scott Tillman, but also to discuss some major episodes of Texas AG impeachment trials. So stay with me for this commercial break. Thank you.
You are loved. You are valued. You are resilient. You got this.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides at aarp.org/care. HealthAid.org/caregiving.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
You know, it took 20 years and I got my third child who was 17 at the time.
It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Hey, Lily says AT&T is giving everyone their best deals.
Minus the air quotes.
Best deals.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Told you, the best deals are for everyone here, with a choice of plans.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
At AT&T, we give everyone our best deals on every smartphone.
Hi, I'm Dwayne Saunders, owner of Genuine Automotive and Diesel. When your car needs repair, trust our skilled technicians at Genuine Automotive and Diesel to get you safely back on the road. It is our mission not only to fix your vehicle, but help provide honest expert advice so you can make the most informed decision about your automotive repair. Whenever you need routine maintenance, electrical service, and alignment or transmission work, we're here for you. Our technicians bring years of experience and extensive training to give you the highest quality care and service. We listen carefully to all our customers' needs so we can meet your repair goals and budget. At Genuine Automotive and Diesel, customer loyalty and trust is our top priority. That's why we work hard every day to create an exceptional experience that will bring you back, so the next time you've got car trouble, give us a call at 512-410-2599 or stop in and see us in our North Austin location.
Welcome back to Purple Politics, and we have some breaking news in the Attorney General Paxton's impeachment trial being held in Texas and captivating the United States. Texas Attorney General is being impeached under 16 articles to include bribery, abuse of power, and misuse of his office. And this all stems to his relationship with real estate Texas tycoon Nate Patel. In today's continued trials, which Attorney General Paxton is not required to attend, a former Assistant Attorney General Bagert is now testifying, and he has been giving descriptions of what he said was very concerning, odd behaviors with Attorney General, and also communications and lunches with the very realtor who was under FBI investigation and being sued by a local charity. And in his testimony, he is presented as to the reason why he went to the feds in order to protect what he felt was the reputation of the Attorney General's office, and also to ensure that the laws of Texas were being upheld by the very man that was sworn to abide by that. He related in his testimony that back in 2020, Attorney General Paxton asked Baber to attend a lunch with this realtor. And at that time, Baber was like, this is inappropriate because we, as the Attorney General's office, represent the constituents and we represent the interest of the philanthropy that was suing the realtor. And in a flurry, Paxton basically got a waiver of conflict of interest by Nate. And so they went to this very uncomfortable lunch. After the lunch, Baber was very uncomfortable and was suspicious that what he had witnessed and been a part of was basically illegal and contrary to the policies of the office. And he went to a coworker to share with him his concerns. And in these discussions that ensued, more questions, more observations of inappropriate or what was suspected as inappropriate behaviors pushed these individuals, these attorneys, to go to the feds and make a report. And let me remind you, the only reason why we are now witnessing an impeachment trial that is third in the history of Texas, and one that has not been dealt with, I think, for over 150 years or 200 years, is because Attorney General Paxton was trying to settle a whistleblower lawsuit. You see, these very same assistant general attorneys that went to the feds, to the federal authorities, to state that they had concerns as to the viability of what their attorney general was doing and concerns that he was violating the very laws that he swore to protect, they were fired in retaliation. And as a retaliatory attack, they came and brought a civil lawsuit, which was supposed to be settled by $3 million. Well, Attorney General Paxton then went to the legislatures to have the $3 million paid by the tax dollars. So what does this come to? What this comes to is basically opening the door for this impeachment. This trial is by no means going to be done within a few days. In fact, they're estimating that it will be 30 days until there is a conclusion. Now, one thing is to be said. Though Attorney General Paxton is a Republican and he has been keeping the staff of the extreme right, conservative, evangelical type of Republican, it gives, I would say, I appreciation for the senators that is a Republican-led Senate, that they had the gumption, they had the moral fiber to actually pursue the impeachment trial. Despite 7 conservative Republican senators voting to throw the charges out, they felt that this was too important of an issue that needed a full trial, and a trial that is before the people as well, so that there is accountability, that there is justice, and also, again, that there is transparency within the government. So this is something that we will be continuing to follow along with. It is exciting times when it comes to Ken Paxton. And now I want to go back to a subject that we glanced over and will be part of my interview with Mr. Tillman. And that is the continuing saga of when is old too old to serve? We in America are currently being led by people that are octogenarians. I, for one, I have a father who is 91 years old. He is brilliant. He is competent in many facets. However, even he would say that someone needs to look at whether the ability to rule, the ability to conduct yourself in such a high office is capable after a certain time. Because as we've seen, Mitch McConnell just freeze. Since his accident, since the fall at the Washington Hotel where he hit his head and was concussed, he's looking more frail. He is having to have assistance from his aides to the point that he literally has a brain freeze of 30 seconds. And at one point can, oh, I'm having a senior moment, really gloss over the serious implications that our current leadership is aging out. But even a better question is why do we continue voting these people in? And Scott Tillman, he actually gives great perspective on this, and it is part of an interview that I am very excited to go into, because we the people need to seriously look at what are we doing in our elections. Why do we continue to vote the way we are voting? Is it simply because of name recognition, or is it the devil that is known is better than the unknown? Because at this point, we have what some would say a doddering old fool as a president. We have a former president that is looking like he's going to get the Republican nomination, who's also older. But even, I would say, scarier is that our leadership in the Senate is above the age of 70s. Most of these people are beyond the age of retirement. So that brings us to question, what are we doing as a nation when we continue to elect people who are, if they were in private sector, would have been deemed too old to continue to work? This doesn't just go against McCollum. This also goes to Senator Feinstein of California. And what's really interesting is that though they do not wish to do so, Congress has the ability to question and actually raise a hearing on the capacity of a member to continue in their role. And if they were to vote and state that an individual, a senator, is not able to continue to perform the duties of their office, then the governor of the state would have the opportunity to fill that role. Now, here's the caveat. Like in California and in Kentucky, the governor can't just place anyone. So you can't replace Mitch McConnell, who's a Republican, with a Democrat. He has to do like for like, party for party. Same with California, with Senator Feinstein. You have to put in a Democrat, like for like. So this is now beginning an interesting discussion and debate as to whether it is time for our states, for our own governors and legislatures of our states to put together and have 34 states come together and push the issue for a constitutional referendum to be placed on the amendment of term limits. And that is what we are going to discuss when we get together with Scott Tillman. And
you are loved. You are valued. You are resilient. You got this.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides at aarp.org/caregiving.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
You know, it took 20 years, and I got my third child, who was 17 at the time.
It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Hey, Lily says AT&T is giving everyone their best deals.
Minus the air quotes.
Best deals.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Told you, the best deals are for everyone here, with a choice of plans.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
At AT&T, we give everyone our best deals on every smartphone.
Hi, I'm Dwayne Saunders, owner of Genuine Automotive and Diesel. When your car needs repair, trust our skilled technicians at Genuine Automotive and Diesel to get you safely back on the road. It is our mission not only to fix your vehicle, but help provide honest expert advice so you can make the most informed decision about your automotive repair. Whenever you need routine maintenance, electrical service, an alignment, or transmission work, we're here for you. Our technicians bring years of experience and extensive training to give you the highest quality care and service. We listen carefully to all our customers' needs so we can meet your repair goals and budget. At Genuine Automotive and Diesel, customer loyalty and trust is our top priority. That's why we work hard every day to create an exceptional experience that will bring you back. So the next time you've got car trouble, give us a call at 512-410-2599 or stop in and see us in our North Austin location.
Hello and welcome back to Purple Politics. It's your hostess, Alina Gonzalez-Dockery, and I am very excited for our next guest, Scott Tillman, who is the field director of U.S. term limits, something that has been a hot button issue in all of media. So I want to welcome Scott, if it's okay, I call you Scott.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Purple Politics. I know we were talking off air a bit, and I am very excited about this issue because it's something that needs to be discussed even more so and brought forward. So if you would, give me a little brief description of your organization and what your, what the goals are for this organization.
So at U.S. Term Limits, we support term limits on all levels of government. Our main focus is Congress, and we're with the vast majority. I mean, 80+%, and sometimes people think 80-20. No, it's like 89. 80 to 9, 80 to 10% oppose. And when you look at who the opponents of term limits are, it's almost exclusively politicians, their relatives, and lobbyists. So this is something that's been extremely popular with the American people going back to the 80s that I'm aware of. It's been discussed since the founding of our nation and was, argued for to be in the founding documents too. In the early 90s, a lot of different state organizations popped up kind of on their own, and they ended up forming into what is U.S. term limits. And they were pushing for congressional term limits. They were using their local state ballot initiatives. So I say local, I mean statewide. So they would go around, gather signatures, put it on the ballot. These were passing overwhelmingly, 90, 92, 94, all around the country. There was a representative, Thornton from Arkansas, who challenged that, the law that had been passed in Arkansas, and the Supreme Court had a 5-4 decision where they said any term limits on Congress need to come through a congressional amendment process. So lately, in the past decade, we've been working to pass resolutions calling for a convention for term limits, which is an Article 5 convention for an amendment. So we have a provision in our Constitution, Article 5, that allows for an amendment process where states can say we want an amendment on this topic. When we get to 34 states, 2/3, we will then trigger that, and Congress will be bound. Because Congress is politicians, and they're part of that, 9% that really oppose term limits. Otherwise, we would have it because it's overwhelmingly popular with Democrats, Republicans, Independents, all across the spectrum.
Well, and who wants to put term limits if it's going to affect their employability? I have always thought it was ironic that our founding fathers, to ensure that we didn't have a king in place, has term limits from the George Washington's time, term limits on our president, but yet we have congressional members that have been serving since 50 years? I mean, in the 80s, Pelosi was elected in 83. We have President Joe Biden, who has been in service for 50 years with a brief, respite, as I would say, during the Trump administration. It really does beg the question, why is it that we have such an elderly representation that is the power brokers in our national government? I mean, we're looking at Senator Barbara Feinstein, the oldest member at 90, who we could probably give a good argument is incompetent to serve. We have Mitch McConnell, who has frozen not once, but twice while speaking, and he's 81 years old. And it's not to make fun of or minimize what, that concussive incident that he endured, but it's bringing to light what is his faculties, how is he able to continue to really go forward with an arduous schedule. But for me, I'm looking at, going back to the Reagan years when Ronald Reagan was first elected. He was 72 years old, and that was scandalous. He was too old, but today he would be a spring chicken in our congressional members. So it really begs the question, how do we really effectively get term limits up? And I understand that getting 34 states on board. How many states do you have currently that have?
We have 6 states that have, and Florida is one of them, and we have 6 states that have asked for that. This isn't something that was always a problem. As you mentioned, George Washington set the example, but they didn't formalize that. It wasn't until FDR ran for more than 2 terms that they actually formalized that, and under Harry Truman got an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It used to be that people would go and serve and go home, and it was only after the 20s, a couple things go into it. Ease of transportation to get to Washington, D.C. They seriously staffed up. There was a lot of growth in government. The invention of air conditioning, which made it not necessarily a bad thing to be in Washington, D.C. all year round, and those things had a huge impact. But why don't they step down? There's a lot of power associated with that job. Lord Acton, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There's a reason why that rings true, and because it is true. And these people, especially in the Senate, they're, we have the most powerful country on earth, and to give up the power, 1/100th of the decision-making ability for that body, they don't want to do it. And we get people who are clearly not in good health, probably not able to do constituent service work, but their staff has encouraged them and kind of put them on to run, and they're in that office, and you know that they're not sitting in the office taking calls all day. You know that they're not going out to lobbyist dinners and meeting with lobbyists all day. They're kind of being shepherded around, and it's kind of on autopilot, but it's impossible to overcome their local political machine because of all the incumbent advantages to beat them in any election. So they continue to hold power. And we need to change that, because people can't decide. People have proven and shown that they're incapable of making the right decisions for themselves. And when we poll on this issue, I mentioned it was, over 80%. But when you ask, if you knew this would affect your own congressman or your own senator, and that they would be term limited, you would think, well, maybe not my guy. But the number actually increases. The support number increases when you put that caveat with it. In consistently in polling, if you ask that question, the support goes up. So it's one of those things that the people obviously know it's needed. The politicians know the people want it, and they're ignoring the people. If you go and have a conversation with a politician, or this issue comes up at a debate, they tend to try to get off the topic as soon as possible. Unless they're pretty savvy, and then they'll mention it themselves, and it always, every time, will get an applause line. I don't care what your venue is, it gets an applause line every time. People react to it. But politicians don't want to give up that power. They're really clinging to it.
Well, so let me ask, what would be the suggested term, if there were term limits? What would be the suggested amount of years? And then how would a term limit versus mandatory retirement age benefit the people of the United States?
So the term limit that we advocate for, and that we have over 100 members of Congress are co-sponsors for and have signed the pledge, is for 6 years in the House and 12 years in the Senate, 3 House terms and 2 Senate terms. And we go with that because that's what the people of the United States want. We've polled on it, we've asked. And why do people want that? They don't think that a position in the House of Representatives should be a career. And once you get to 8 years and beyond, people start thinking, well, that's the amount of time I spent with this or that in my life. And when you get to 8 years, it's pretty well a career. They don't want career politicians. Senate, people think that people should be able to run, maybe win re-election one time and run again. And our framers designed the 2 houses to be different because they wanted more experience in the Senate, but they had no idea that people would stay that long. People who, most of them wouldn't stay beyond one term at the founding for the Senate. And the House members stayed much, not very long at all. But age limits. So one thing we find is when you look at term limits in states, the average term limited state representative is about 3 years younger than the average term limited, non-term limited state representative. And it's the same number, about 3 years for Senate members. And so that would help bring the age down just clearly by what the numbers show. But then when it comes to Congress, most people are running for Congress when, they're in midlife, 40s, 50s. Very few are running over the age of 60. So having term limits on would definitely bring that age down. And the people who are there, they get elected when they're younger, and then they amass power because it's a seniority system. They don't want to give it up. They have a committee chairmanship. They've got a lot of established donors. They got a lot of people who are coming to them for political favors as well as help with political fundraising. They don't want to give that up, that influence. And not just them, their staff, their office administration also doesn't want to give that up. And that makes this huge difference. And it's impossible to buck that. So you go into a state and you try to upend the system and challenge the incumbent from within the party, because a lot of states are, they lean blue or they lean red. If you try to go in there, and throw out the current guy, I mean, it doesn't work unless there's been some huge scandal or something like that. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't work even if there has been a huge scandal. People under indictment still get nominated. We see very often. So it's just very, very hard to upend that. And the power and the benefits that come from it, they don't want to give it up.
Well, and it's, what's the saying? A fox is in the hen house. I mean, it's, they're sitting there and they're getting fat. And that has been an issue now for, definitely since early 2000s that I'm finding. But when you're looking at the main front runners for the Republican primary, 78 years old, current president's 80, but they're term limited. And we have 2 people, let's say just for the sake of argument, are two, current president and former president are the nominees, it's only for one term. We have term limits for our president for a reason. But it also begs the question that I'm going to throw in a kind of a hiccup in here is, our congressional members have relinquished a lot of control to the bureaucratic administration as well. But it definitely poses, you're posing a great question. And also maybe because today the grassroots efforts are stronger than they have been probably in the past 40 years, this may be this may be the time it actually gets implemented. I'm so good to talk to you, Scott, and I'm excited for our next segment. However, I'm going to have to take a brief break and pause for our commercials at this time. Thank you so much, and come join us after the commercial break, where we will continue to talk about term limits and the effects on our current political stratagems.
Thank you.
My name is Andrew Glisson. Over the past 4 years, I've built a portfolio of over 200 single-family rental properties that generate over $200,000 a month in income. I've put together a 6-step formula to help you consistently acquire rental properties that cash flow $250,000 or more a month and have $30,000 or more of equity built into them. This includes starting right, becoming bankable, buying right, renovating right, exit strategies, property management, and many more modules. Best of all, if you're not totally blown away by the content, we offer a 30-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. If you're ready to build generational wealth for you and your family, look me up at sfruniversity.com.
Hey, Lily says AT&T is giving everyone their best deals.
Minus the air quotes.
Best deals.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Told you, the best deals are for everyone here, with a choice of plans.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
At AT&T, we give everyone our best deals on every smartphone.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure, and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again.
¿Quieres tener el mejor recuerdo de bodas, original, exclusivo y fuera de lo común? Entra a www.larevistadetuboda.mx o visítanos en nuestra página de Instagram o Facebook. Descubre todo lo que puede quedar plasmado en el recuerdo que siempre soñaste. Reportajes, entrevistas, un diseño personalizado, sesiones fotográficas y mucho más. Solo en la revista de tu boda.
And welcome back to Purple Politics, where I am joined by Scott Tillman, Field Director of U.S. Term Limits. And we are discussing important subject, especially in light of our aging congressional members. We were briefly talking about Senator McCollum, who at 81 years old had 2 episodes that he froze. And he is currently somewhat defending himself, saying medically he was cleared. He is not having TIA, strokes, things like that. But let's just play a little scenario. For instance, so here we have Senator McCollum, who's been in office since the late 80s, I believe. If he were to step down, or if the congressional members actually implemented a procedure to question his capacity and removed him from his seat, we're still looking at the top 4 Republican senators that may be in hold, that 2 of them are in their mid-70s, 1 is in his late 60s, and the 4th is only 56. And I think, and it's still, these are men, or I believe one woman, but these are senators that have been in power in their seat now for over a decade.
Mhm.
And I come back to, and I'm not trying to say that I'm an ageist, but you have to look at these individuals and say, how is it that we can move forward as a country in evolving times that are advancing in everything, and still have this stoic, stodgy system, or people and representatives that are not moving forward unless it's beholden to the lobbyists or the corporations that are packing their pockets.
Yeah, the longer they're there, the more they start to represent Washington interests rather than the constituent interests. And a lot of these members were elected in the 80s, when a Cold War was an issue, then in the 90s, when we were, dealing with the fall of the Soviet Republic and the world, and then even some of them before the War on Terror began. And some of, so our government is meant to be responsive to the people. And when we have people in there who have been in there for that long, they lose a little bit of touch. And you see a lot with young people today, with inflation impacting things, rents, home ownership issues, student loan issues, different things. A lot of these members are out of touch with the current problems. And it's not necessarily they're saying let them eat cake situation, although we've had some of those moments where they show how out of touch they are. But when people get to a certain age, we also, a lot of us have experienced, cognitive decline, and we've seen our parents, our grandparents, where, grandpa's doing great, and then 2 years later, you wouldn't trust him with the car keys, and he might not know that might not see it in himself that he's not in that position. People can decline very quickly after 80 years old, and if we had term limits, this wouldn't be a problem, because in states with term limits, you don't have representatives that are that old. They don't. They term out before that, and they don't choose to run when they're at that age. They're running kind of on momentum, and because they can't be beat, it's not as if they're out there hardcore campaigning for the new issue of the day that's big and important to the young people. No, they're coasting along because they don't have any challenger in their own party primary, and the only time they're losing is when their state turns from blue to red or red to blue, and there's an upset like that, which a lot of times is on the coattails of whoever's running for president and big national issues along those lines. They're not really representative, and there's no way for us to get back to that other than to ensure that we have open seats at a regular basis, which is to have term limits. Incumbent advantage is a real thing, and it's the only solution for it. We can't write any law that's going to somehow handicap the incumbent in a way that would be fair across the board. But if we put in open seats so that every 12 years you're certain to have one in the Senate, every 6 years you're certain to have one in the House, it would bring in new blood. And it's not like we're going to have amateur hour. These are people who normally are coming from running a state legislature, normally have been successful in their field, whether it be in education or business or legal, those type of things. There's a lot of people out there, and having this power concentrated in the hands of 535 people who the vast majority of them don't face any real challenge, they're going to start representing different interests other than their constituents, and that's what we see today.
And I have to ask this, based on all of the studies that you have done in the polls and such, are there any example countries that we can look to that have effectively said, okay, we are capping you at this amount of years of service, and once you hit that, it's time for new leadership? Is there any good representative?
There's not a lot of countries that have those type of term limits on legislatures. There's a lot of countries that have term limits on leaders. The age limit is a new thing, which has become really hot ever since Senator Feinstein had her moment and Senator McConnell had his moment, 2 moments now. So we're in the process of putting together the data on that. But when we look at countries around the world, and you look at this is especially in Asian and African countries that don't score very high on freedom or prosperity indexes, and you look and you see it's the same people who've been in power for a long time, and we're like, well, that's a banana republic. How can the same people be in charge for 30 years? But then you look here and you're like, well, we have leaders in the Senate and in the House that have essentially been in power for 30 years. It's not as blatantly obvious, but it is a very similar problem. And none of us would think that it's okay in those countries. And we don't think that it's okay in our own country, but it's impossible to, you can't beat a stacked deck. And that's the problem we run up against. So we need to do this because they can't decide for themselves.
Well, and again, it's like putting what's the reality of congressional members going, yep, we're going to pass this bill that will effectively term us all out and we're out of a job. And it's true. This was never meant to be a lifetime position. And I think that part of one of the benefits of a lot of these issues coming to light, not only the age and the question marks of incompetency, but also to see how members have been enriched by their positions within Congress that allowed them to purchase the right time the stocks or sell and things like that.
Oh yeah, they all get rich on it. And you wonder how somebody living in one of the most expensive places in the country, having to maintain two homes, one in district and one in Washington, D.C., can somehow become more than a multimillionaire. These people are worth hundreds, if not billions of dollars. And Congress, they love to they don't want any responsibility, but they want all the credit. So they like to go out and fundraise, and they can make a lot of money by keeping issues controversial. But when it comes to actually taking responsibility and solving problems, they like to push off anything that could eventually come back and be seen as, you made that decision years ago. No, they push off all those things to the administration. They push it off to the executive branch so that they don't have to take any responsibility for that. This is something that has gotten worse and worse as congressional tenures have increased. So a lot of times people say, well, what about all that institutional knowledge? Well, the institutional knowledge is, don't take responsibility for anything, pass it off to somebody else, keep things controversial. Let's make it an extremist issue. You're either going to be on this side of it if you're a Democrat, or that side of it if you're a Republican, because then I can get people excited and I can raise money on it. And it all comes down to the money. And when you look at who's getting rich, there's a lot of people in Washington, D.C. getting rich off what shouldn't be. I mean, yes, $175,000 is a lot of money, but they live in the most expensive area. They have to maintain two homes and other stuff. Yes, you should be able to put aside some money from savings if you're living responsibly, but hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm calling BS on this one. There's something going on there.
And I couldn't agree more. Scott, thank you so much for coming on my show. You have been enlightening on the issue of term limits, but also bringing forth a lot of the statistics and data to support the position. And my hope is, as this issue is being presented even more so on the mainstream media as well, that we can get more momentum and more states to say enough is enough, because it is about the people, and we are supposed to be having a government for the people, by the people, not the other way around. So thank you so much. Please tell my viewers, how could they get a hold of you to ask more questions, get more information, or to be a part of this cause?
Alina, thank you. And they can go find us at termlimits.com, or if you go to Facebook in the search bar and you type in term limits and look for U.S. term limits, we're going to be one of your first couple of responses there.
All right, wonderful. Folks, this is a major issue that is really slapping us in the face as we're looking at our aging leaders of this nation. And we're seeing, at least in the Republican primary, some youthful, younger candidates. Vivek Ramaswamy may be correct. Is it not time to be able to push this country forward? We need younger players. We need younger leaders. And it's not just discrediting the leadership and the knowledge and wisdom that our elders have, but it's also to question, when is too old enough? We do have an aging congressional membership. We have two front runners of the next presidential election that are over 75. And how do these elderly people represent us when we're having the Gen Xers, the baby boomers, the millennials, and Gen Zs are starting to vote. So it's all these are the questions. And we also have to look at how is it that our leadership is still thinking that we, the people, are beholden to them. We need to stand up. I implore you, check out the term limits, question your leadership, look at what is really the true bottom line and how we the people are being served. And as always, I always encourage and I want to empower you to use your voice, whether it's at the voting election booth or getting on the phone, starting to